Hey folks, this is Rhykker, bringing you a Heroes of the Storm beginner guide to Muradin. Muradin is a great hero to play if you enjoy being able to absorb a ton of damage, be able to stick around in a fight longer than anyone else, be really annoying to the enemy team by stunning them all the time, and jumping over obstacles around the battlefield. Muradin's role in the party is a warrior. If you're coming from World of Warcraft, that's the equivalent of the tank. Your primary job is to absorb damage that would be otherwise going to other people in your party. Characters that aren't able to sustain the amount of damage that you are. Now, Muradin is rated as medium difficulty, and in fact there is no warrior that is rated as easy. In previous guides, we've gone over Vala, who is rated as an easy assassin, and Lily, who is rated as an easy support. And their roles in a party are pretty straightforward. Shoot the bad guys, heal your allies, respectively. As a warrior, your role is a little more complicated because you have a few more decisions to make that will affect your team. For example, as the warrior, you're generally expected to be the one to start team fights. And the reason for this is you are the tank, you are the meat shield, so you have to be the one in there first, absorbing the first hits. Now that isn't to say that you should just go get yourself killed, or that you should take damage that you don't have to take, but basically if someone on your team is going to be taking damage, it should be you because you're equipped to deal with it better. Basically, as a warrior, you'll find that when the team fighting phase of the game comes, your teammates will rally around you and wait for your cue to engage. If they see you going in, they'll follow. Of course, things don't always pan out this way, but that's at least what's supposed to be expected of the role. Now, some quick advice on picking engagements. It's very simple. Never pick an unfavorable engagement. If your team is outnumbered, if it's 4v5, don't pick that fight. If the enemy team has a significant level advantage on you, don't pick that fight. If your team is injured and the enemy team isn't, don't pick that fight. And by the same token, the fights you do want to pick are those that favor you. Outnumber, outlevel, outposition, outprepare. Recognize an advantage when you see one and pounce on it. Recognize a disadvantage and call for a retreat. Now let's take a look at Muradin's abilities. We start off with Stormbolt. You throw a hammer, deal damage, and stun a target. This makes Muradin really annoying. Warriors are known for their ability to crowd control, and that stun effect is a huge way to control the enemy team. If someone's trying to retreat, stun them, let your team pounce on them. If you see someone casting their ultimate, interrupt them by stunning them. The hammer can be a little difficult to aim, but it is immensely satisfying when you land a good Stormbolt. Next we have Thunderclap. This deals damage in a small area and slows enemies for a short duration. Again, more crowd control. A nice 1-2 punch is to first Stormbolt an enemy. This gives you time to run up to them and close that distance. Then just as that stun goes down, you Thunderclap. That's gonna slow them and further stop them from getting away. Plus, if you find yourself having excess mana, you can even use Thunderclap against enemy minion waves. This is especially useful in the laning phase of the game, those first 10 levels. Next we have Dwarf Toss. This is what allows you to jump over obstacles. You'll primarily be using this, in most cases, as a retreat option. Muradin is really tanky. He can take a lot of punishment, but if things are getting too hot for you, you can just jump away, and preferably you even want to be using this to jump over obstacles so that enemies can't even follow you at all. You can jump over walls with this, allowing you to land safely behind your towers. It's all around a great disengage power, but you can also use it offensively. This is a little trickier. You do deal damage when you land, but you don't want to overcommit. You don't want to go jumping into your death. So if you're going to use this offensively, you want to make sure that there's going to be some follow-up from your teammates, that they're following you, and that they'll be able to take advantage of you moving in. Or you just want to make sure that you're going to be able to finish off a hero that maybe you're chasing down. Someone is retreating, they have a little health, maybe it's Vala and she's vaulted away. Well, just jump after her, land on her, and kill her. Next, Muradin has two ultimate abilities, Avatar and Haymaker. Avatar is a temporary buff that gives you a lot more health and makes all your basic attacks stun enemies. This turns you into a beast. It takes what you're already good at, tanking damage and stunning enemies, and makes you even better at it. Haymaker, on the other hand, is a lot trickier of a power to deal with. It's much more situational, and it's really easy not to get the best out of it. So overall, I would really recommend that you take Avatar. It's always useful, In fact, just popping Avatar, which has a huge visual effect on it, will cause a psychological effect on your enemies. It will change the way they make their decisions as they see you in Avatar mode, because they know that you have activated your super tank mode. So just that in itself may scare them off. Then lastly, your trait is Second Wind. Anytime you're out of combat, you start to regenerate health very quickly. This is what enables Muradin to stay on the battlefield longer than anyone else. If you're getting low on health, instead of having to run all the way back to a healing fountain, you can just back off a little bit, wait a couple seconds, regain health, and then charge back into the fray. A cautious Muradin is incredibly difficult to kill. Now we're going to take a look at some talent choices. We won't present a full build here because a lot of balance changes happen as patches are released, plus changes in the metagame will make certain builds come into and out of favor, but we'll highlight some key talents that you might want to take in certain situations and which may be easier to take for newer players. Now, one thing about Muradin is because he rarely ever dies or has to go back to base, you can find yourself running quite low on mana. If you find that to be the case, then you can go with Infused Hammer. That allows you to refund mana whenever you hit enemies with Stormbolt. Block is just all around a safe choice that will make you a little tankier. Reverberation makes you a little bit better at crowd controlling during teamfights. And Perfect Storm is an interesting talent, and it's something you might want to consider if you really want to focus on dealing damage. While Muradin overall is a warrior, he can be specialized towards dealing a lot of damage. In fact, a surprising amount of damage. Most people don't expect Muradin to deal a lot of damage, so they see him as a presence but not as much of a threat. So if you want to build towards being a little less tanky and a little more of a killer, then you want to start off with Perfect Storm. This will permanently increase the damage you deal with your Stormbolt every time you hit an enemy. Now, this is probably a little bit more advanced because it's going to require you to be hitting enemies a lot with your Stormbolt. So that means you need to have the skill to pull off those skill shots, but it can be a really fun and powerful playstyle. On to level 4, Crowd Control is a solid choice. This rewards you for using your Thunderclap on crowds of enemies by reducing its cooldown significantly when you do so. And there's two situations where this is really useful. The first is when you're fighting a wave of enemy minions. This allows you to get off 2 or more Thunderclaps in rapid succession and clear out that wave very quickly. And the second is when you're in the middle of a team fight. If you have a lot of enemies around you, then you'll be able to deliver those Thunderclaps a lot more often. It's just an all-around very useful talent. Now, Thunderburn is arguably an easier version of Crowd Control. With Crowd Control, you sort of want to aim in order to hit as many enemies as possible, which you should be doing anyway in most cases, but Thunderburn is a lot more forgiving. It basically just applies a second damage effect with an added slow, and so in the middle of a team fight, laying down your Thunderclap becomes just a little more annoying to the enemy. At level 7, Piercing Bolt is a great power, especially for newer players. It allows your Stormbolt to penetrate through the first target it hits, hitting one additional target behind it. In fact, this is good for both newer players and advanced players, because it makes Stormbolt a little more forgiving with regards to aiming. Because this way, let's say you accidentally hit an enemy minion instead of an enemy hero, it can go through that minion and hit the hero behind him. But for a really good player, you could potentially hit 2 enemy heroes. And this combines really well with the level 1 Infused Hammer, because if you can hit 2 enemies, then you're getting back a ton of mana. If you find yourself opting for that really aggressive damage-oriented build, you can instead go with Landing Momentum. Again though, this is a lot riskier, and arguably for a little bit more advanced players, but that's going to allow you to chase down an enemy that much better. At level 10, again, we recommend Avatar. At level 13, Thunderstrike is all around a great ability to take, even if you're not going for that pure damage build. Of course, if you are going for pure damage, then you definitely want Thunderstrike. That triples the damage of Thunderclap if you only hit 1 target. But all around, this makes Thunderclap a more versatile skill, because prior to this, it was more of an AoE skill, a skill you want to be using to target multiple enemies. This makes it useful even against a single target. It also makes it more forgiving. Let's say you accidentally only hit 1 target instead of multiple ones, you're still getting a great amount of damage out of it. Otherwise, if you just want to be tankier, then Spell Shield is a great power. What Block does for basic attacks, Spell Shield does for ability damage. So if someone tries to hit you with a big powerful ability, a big damage spike, this is going to cut that damage in half. At level 16, Stone Form gives you tremendous survivability in combat. At this point, you become basically unkillable. If you combine Stone Form with Avatar, you basically never have to retreat from a battle. This gives you a huge heal power. Now, the one thing is that it does give you another button to push in combat, but it's pretty straightforward about when to use it. This lets you heal 50% of your health, but it is over the duration of 8 seconds. So you don't have to wait until you're below 50% health. If you're getting close to 50% and you're still taking more damage, go ahead and pop it. You'll continue to take damage, you'll get dropped below 50, and then Stone Form will eventually heal you up so that you don't die. Now again, if you're going for that very aggressive build, then Dwarf Launch will give you even more range and impact radius on your Dwarf Toss. This combines really well with that landing momentum. There are some heroes that are really good at sneaking away, at withdrawing from a battle. We're talking about Vala, we're talking about Sylvanas. By buffing your Dwarf Toss, no one's going to be able to get away from you. Then at level 20, Unstoppable Force is a great power. This makes your avatar last even longer and reduces the duration of disable effects by a huge margin while you're in avatar. I mean, what's not to like? It makes your avatar better and last longer. Overall, it's a really powerful and safe talent to take. That said, we'll take a look at two other options here. Hardened Shield will give you a 4-second shield that highly reduces enemy damage. This is a nice oh shit button. If you find you're getting close to dying, you can pop Hardened Shield. However, this does give you another key to press on your keyboard, and you have to think about using it at the right time. It's on a 60-second cooldown, and so as a newer player, you might not get too much use out of this power, especially if you don't use it at the right time. That makes Unstoppable Force overall a lot more useful if you don't have the experience to really know when to use that Hardened Shield or be able to execute and use it when you need to. The other power is Rewind, and this combines especially well with the aggressive build. This will reset the cooldowns of all your basic abilities. This is a tremendously powerful talent, but again, it gives you another button to press on your keyboard. And knowing when is best to use it is a little trickier. However, if you find yourself, again, hunting down enemies, jumping after them, trying to stun them, then you can leap on them, unleash your salvo of Stormbolt and Thunderclap, and if they're still not dead, you hit Rewind. That resets your cooldown and enables you to unleash a second salvo and finish them off. So that wraps up this video. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment letting me know what you like and dislike about Muradin. Come back in the future for more Heroes of the Storm guides, including advice on heroes, roles, maps, and more. And if you enjoyed this video, share it with friends, leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders.